Dreamscape presents The Dealer and the Dead by Gerald Seymour. Narrated by John Telfer. Prologue. They were right, and he knew it, but he could not admit it to them. Peter's boy had started, had nagged at it, then Tomislav's son had taken it up, and now it was Andrea's cousin who voiced the obvious.
"We are here too long, sir. We should have been well gone. Sir, we have to accept it. It is in our faces, and an idiot could see it."
The respect they showed him waned with each minute they stayed huddled and bent low, trying to find some minimal shelter from the rain. The corn, which had ripened 2 months before, and had not of course been harvested, offered no refuge from the cold and wet that engulfed them. They respected him because he had taught them basic lessons at the village's school, adding and subtracting, writing and reading, with a degree of discipline. He sensed that their respect had almost run its course, but he would not admit to them that they were right and he was wrong.
"We stay," he said. "They will come. They promised they would. I have their word."
As the school teacher in the village, Zoran was a person of status. If there had been a resident priest, the teacher would have had second place, but they shared a priest with other small communities. If the land around their village had been administered and worked by a collective, Zoran would have lagged behind its manager, but the strip fields had escaped the centralization of the old regime and were farmed by individuals. They waited on a path between Peter's crops, near to the Vuka River. Zoran was wrong, because now he could see the men who challenged his authority, not clearly in detail, but he recognized their shapes and shadow movements. He knew which was Peter's son and Tomislav's, and which was Andrea's cousin. He could see them because the dawn was coming. Slowly, because of the deluge of rain. They should not be on the path after first light. They called it the Kukuruzhny Put, and knew it was an act of suicide to be moving on the cornfield road without the cover of darkness. But he demanded that they wait. If anyone stood at full height and peered to the west through the drooping tips of the corn, they would have seen the constant light over the town that was perhaps 5 kilometers down the cornfield road. The brightness was from the many fires that the incendiary shells had lit. If they stayed crouched with their faces a few centimeters from the mud and cupped their self-rolled cigarettes in their palms, they still could not escape the rumble of the big howitzer guns. The explosions, intensifying because a new day always started with a barrage of destruction, were muffled if the firing came from across the Danube and aimed at the heart of the town, loud if the targets were the villages of Marinci and Bogdanovci, and shatteringly clear if the shells came down on their own homes. When the closest shells detonated, each man shuddered or winced. Zoran thought of his wife, and the young men of their fathers, Peter and Tomislav. Andrea's cousin thought of Maria and Andrea in their cellar. For almost 3 months the cornfield road had been a lifeline for the town and 3 villages that straddled it. The men and women who defended them accepted that when this last route was cut, the siege would end, and resistance would collapse. Zoran could have berated them for smoking, for allowing the smell of burned tobacco to waft in the wind, but did not. It was hard for him to believe they would not come. He strained his eyes to search for the tiny torch beam that would show his trust had been well placed. He tried to shut out the murmurs of the men with him and listened for the squelch of boots among the collapsed corn. He saw nothing but the vivid brightness of the fires in the town, and heard only the complaints of those he had brought with him.
"Listen, old man, are you wanting us all dead? They aren't coming. They would have been here by now if they were."
24 days ago he had walked fast down that path. Then the Chetniks, the Yugoslav military, and Arkan's scum had been further back. Now they were closer, and had snipers with night vision gear who watched the gaps where the crop had failed. Artillery...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?